Welcome to the Pick Me Up Podcast Unscripted, brought to you by CDI College, the training you need for the career you want. I'm Jennifer Lee, and join me for a monthly conversation where we unravel the myths of mental health with our expert guests. Get ready for a fun and informative deep dive into many topics that are currently on our minds. Let's get started. Hey, it's Jennifer Lee, and I'm really excited to be back for CDI College's podcast, the Pick Me Up podcast. We're on episode 2. And in this podcast, we talk about mental health in an honest and fun and informative way. Each month, we'll have a different expert on to do with mental health. So we're going to get into our next topic in just a second. But if you haven't listened to our very first episode where I talked to counselor Angela Leong about what exactly is mental health and how older movies portray mental health not in the correct way. So make sure you catch that one. It's on Spotify and, of course, Apple Podcasts. Okay, moving on to our next episode. It is all about the men. So last month was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's really important to be aware of this, not just in June, but all year round, because it's something that guys go through in any stage of their life, either younger in life when they're growing up, or as they head into post-secondary education, or maybe they're just starting their career, or they're well into their career. At one point, guys could end up feeling different symptoms of mental health. So we want to make sure we're aware of that so we can get the proper help when needed. So I'm really excited to talk to our next guest, and it is Dr. Benjamin Morrell. And we're going to talk to him about this very important topic. Hey, Ben, how are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Of course, before we dive into the topic, I always like to learn more about everybody. I love learning about everybody's stories because they're all so different. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do? And I also read, before we get started, that you are a child of 12, which I think is a lot of siblings.
Yeah. So if we want to go back to the core of who I am, I'm 9th of 12 children. So that middle lower tier kind of framework is how I operate, which really means I do all the work and don't get any of the credit. Shout out to the middle children out there. So a lot of that involved, but a little different for me because I ended up taking more of a leadership role the older I got. So sort of climbing that hierarchy slowly but surely. I grew up in Southern Oklahoma. Father is a plumber. Mother was a stay-at-home mom. She went back to college later, of course, once some of the kids got up and out. But yeah, so just small town, blue collar. That's how I typically go about things, just honest up front. No BS. Let's just talk about what we can do here. And, finally, I ended up going from graduating high school. I never really had a big plan in mind. I was sort of your standard apathetic, didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it teenager, just sort of hanging out. And eventually, that has to come crashing down whenever you have to start making decisions like college, debt, relationships, and really being an adult, or adulting, as folks say. So from there on, I had to look at my life and see what mattered to me. And I experienced some pretty wild things. If you can imagine having 11 siblings in small town Southern Oklahoma, you're going to see some stuff. And learning through the experiences of my siblings really helped me. I saw a lot of addiction going through there, and my younger brother was hit by a truck when we were children, and I watched that happen. So that was the deep-rooted issues I had with life, was questioning like, what's going on, what do I care about, and ultimately it led to me. My purpose is my little brother lived. He's incredible. He's awesome. He's my my best friend. He's physically and mentally disabled, but that love is still right there and still kicking. So I needed to see that. Taught me the lesson that I want to help people. I want to, in any way, fashion, or form. And that's what led to my decision of wanting to be a doctor. So I wasn't very smart, so I had to work very, very hard for an extended duration of time, but I made it here. So now my big thing is lifestyle medicine, which is ultimately how can we help people the most by simply giving them a lifestyle that heals them and limiting medications. And also performance coaching is the other side of that, which is how do we do and be better people. So there's in a box, that's what I am and what I do.
And I also read that you have 4 degrees. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So going through that process, that's a lot of schoolwork. Did you ever find yourself struggling a little bit during that process of getting 4 degrees with mental health?
Every day, all day. Right. So this is this where is where the performance coaching comes in. Whereas, really what made me do all that, it wasn't because I was naturally talented or, intelligent or particularly, hardworking, but I had a very powerful purpose, a very powerful why. And not a lot of people had that where, there would be times where like I was studying, there was two places I was. It was either library or the gym. That's the only places I existed. And there was multiple times where I wanted to quit and give up or studying genetics. Oh my God. And I'm just from some small town in Oklahoma. I've never experienced any of that. And to not really have any support, tutors, or finances. And it's hard. And in college, like I made this decision on a whim. I was like, I'm just going to be a doctor. I don't know what I'm doing, So walking through it was very anxious, battled with, some depressive symptoms, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of like issues with confidence and self-esteem. Is like, can I actually do this? It's like the hardest thing, really, or hardest education available. But the one thing that always saved me was the background on my phone and my laptop was my younger brother Cohen, who was just, that's my best friend. And I sought out to create a life where, I got to save other people and share that with other people. And then I told my mom I would buy her a house when I was 18 years old. So I was like, I have to perform. I got to ball out here and do well to support my friends and family. And that got me through some of the toughest moments I ever been through, for sure.
Did you end up buying her house yet?
Not yet. That one's still in the process.
Still in the process.
Yeah, I still got that massive debt. So that's the other thing that the medical system got from me.
And you bring up too, like a lot of students right now are probably struggling with like working extra jobs, having to pay for schooling, either college or university, depending on where they're going. And because it's not cheap to go to school. And then, of course, right now, we kind of have the uncertainty of a lot of industries with the pandemic because some industries are struggling more than others. So is there any advice that you can give to students at this moment that might be thinking like, uh-oh, what's going on? How am I going to be able to finish my degree? I have all these different pressures on me.
So this is, it's different for case by case. Every student is going to be different. Every person is going to be different. But one thing that we consistently struggle with is, feeling value, feeling worth, feeling success. And really, right now, and where we are in first world America at this time and place, even if you are at the poorest, lowest demographic there is in the world, you are still the wealthiest and the richest in terms of finances and opportunity. So it's very important to humble yourself in that regard and realize like it seems tough, and it is tough, and I don't want to say that it's not, but it can be done, and with the right attitude and the right energy and the right attention, we can make these things real. We're just going to have to work smarter and harder. And people don't like to hear that because it can be a little more difficult. However, this part of your life, and this is where the purpose comes in, this is the most difficult part of your life for a reason, because it's going to provide to you all the skills, tools, and mindset that you need for the rest of your life. Someday you're going to be the leader in your family, in your community, and you're going to be paying all the bills. And they're going to be like, oh, afraid of things, and you'll have already been there and you have it mastered. So then you'll have that skill set, and it's invaluable. It's worth more than money, is what you're building right now.
Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit into, of course, men's mental health. We talked a little bit at the beginning of my intro, but I think even though they call it the silent crisis, when I was reading a lot about this, I don't know your opinion on this, but I'm finding in the last few years, and I don't know if it's like my generation, which I'm a millennial, or there's even the younger generation, we're getting more in tune with ourselves and we're opening up a bit more. And I'm finding with guys specifically, when I go on dates with them, they're really open about their mental health, and I applaud them for that. I think that's amazing that they're able to share things with me. So are you finding that? Are you still finding that a lot of guys are kind of still sweeping it under the rug and hiding if they do have any mental health symptoms or challenges?
Well, so to me, it all starts with awareness, right? So most men, they didn't even know they had a problem because they didn't even know it were a problem. So this would be my case when I was younger. Like if you told me I was depressed or anxious, I'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, first of all, that's all I had ever known. So I didn't know that I could be different. I didn't know happiness or peace. So I didn't know that those things were accessible, really, until I read in third year medical school, reading through the psychiatry rotation information, when I started truly like looking at what is depression, what is anxiety, bipolar disorder, these things. I started reading all these symptoms on how people think and how people act, and I'm sitting there reading it, and I'm like, oh no. I was like, wait a minute, this sounds really familiar, really familiar. And it turned out that it was the story of kind of me and my family. So at that point in time, I had to own it and just be honest with it, because the other thing that provided to me a lot of hope was that if we address these things, you can get better at them. Just weak mental health is just simply a downstream effect of inability to regulate emotions, unsure of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and just not taking care of ourselves in general. So thankfully, that provided me some hope moving forward. But in lump sum, absolutely, we're being more open about mental health. There are several athletes, professional athletes, that have come out and talked about it. Olympians doing the same thing, and there's just a whole new wave of just talking about kindness and leadership from love versus frustration. And I just want to say, shout out to all the leaders in society who are making sure to project that message. And we're slowly transitioning away from materialism towards paying more attention to emotions and kind of spirituality, which I think is an excellent shift to make in where we're at in today's times.
And I think there's also a shift in the fact that I think before with mental health for anyone, we thought mental health was only one way. It's like you were really extreme and nobody wanted to be that. People don't realize that there's like lighter symptoms of mental health. And maybe you're not all the way there, but we all experience a little bit. And like for me, like it's interesting you brought up you didn't know that you're anxious. I was the same thing. I was in a bus accident a few years ago and I didn't know that I had anxiety because I was a passenger on a bus. And then every time I would get in my vehicle and be in my car and drive somewhere, I was like, why does it feel like I'm breathing through a straw? Why do I feel like I have a rock on my chest? Because I never put two and two together. Like it just happened after a bus accident because I was like, I was a passenger in the bus. I'm fine. Like I should be fine when I get in the car, but you don't realize that can correlate as well. And I think a lot of us sometimes are just like, I don't know what this is, so I'm just going to ignore it and push on.
Exactly. And if we, like I said, if we're not aware of it, how can we ever work on it? And if we won't accept it, we can never commit to doing anything about it. So I think a big part of it is, especially for men, is living in denial. We're taught from the time I was born, if I cried, that was like a no-no. If I was sad, that was a no-no. If I was mad, same thing. And we're taught to always suck it up and to not address these things or to even release them. So you end up pending them up. You're like pending them up, and I don't even really know how to express them, let alone really what they are or how to feel them. And that's pretty common, I think, in today's times. So learning about the necessity of them, that these emotions are their energy, they're here to move us, and that they serve a purpose, and it's our job to make sure that those emotions are directed towards what they're designed to be directed towards, instead of simply shoved down into your chest, where it starts to bundle up and you start feeling kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I was just listening to another podcast, and what a male psychologist is saying that guys to have kind of like bottle up the toughness, and he's like, you can only be so tough for so long until it like eventually just breaks, and then you're like, oh no, because that's the thing. A lot of guys are taught, like you said, it's like you have to be tough, you can't show anything, and it is unfortunate that that's the way it is because. I think it's great if people can show their emotions more and it makes them more relatable to people.
Yeah, that experience is called breaking the glass, and that actually happened to me. So between second and third year medical school, I had never admitted that I ever had a problem. Like at this point in time, graduated summa cum laude, played college football, uh, you know, fade hair, beard, tattoos. Like I was that guy, and I refused to, admit that I had any problems. really perfectionist and is not healthy at all. But that's what I was, really just taught to be from the get-go. And so many things that happened at that point in time where I was suffering with so many like family issues. Medical school was extremely difficult. Studying for boards was just wrecking me. And, I had got on, or I had been put on medication essentially for some of that led to some really bad side effects that, caused me to ultimately spiral into a depression. And then right before my test, my best friend, called me telling me he was going to kill himself. And at 2:30 the night before the biggest test of my life. And that was the first time I ever truly, truly crumbled. And I remember just distinctly like taking this test just completely out of my body, just like get it over with, get it over with. And then ultimately I took that. My grade wasn't what I wanted to be. And of course, my egotistical self was absolutely destroyed. And then I started a surgery rotation where I was waking up at 3:30 every morning, getting about 3-4 hours of sleep a night, high stress, high environment for 2 months straight. And that whole thing just broke me. It brought me down to my knees, really. It broke that glass where I finally had to look in the mirror and say, Benjamin, you're a real person. You're a human being. You have emotions. You have issues. You have problems. The good thing is that those things can be addressed and worked on if you will be humble, shut up, and listen to people who are trying to help you and accept help.
Wow, I've never heard the term breaking the glass before. That's so powerful. That's a great way of putting it. And another thing that I heard that's kind of similar to that too, when I was listening to this is they talked about schedule and putting too much pressure on yourself as guys. And I feel like I can relate to this as a woman too, because I do the same thing. And they said, especially in this COVID kind of freelance life, if you don't really have a structure, you kind of beat up on yourself if you don't hit those points during the day of like, oh, I was supposed to go exercising at 8, but I didn't do it till 9. So I'm horrible. Or I didn't go write that email that I had to write back at 12. So is that a real thing of like this whole like structure and then beating up on ourselves if we're not getting it correct?
It depends on the person. I do think we are human beings are dependent on routines. That's just the way that we are. Our life is like music. So there's a beat and there's a melody that overlays it. And if your circadian rhythm, your sleep cycle's off, your eating schedule's off, your social relationships are off, and the timing of those things are off, just like really bad music with it's like screeching in the background, like white noise is what a lot of people describe it to me as. And I've been there before. It really feels like white noise where nothing makes sense. It's unclear. It's horrible. And that definitely happens when we're disorganized and not regulated. So one of the biggest ways that I work with people is creating those routines and healthy habits and organizing the music, composing our lives. So it's a beautiful tune and it's something that we actually want to be a part of. That being said, there has to be a place for grace. And this is just like playing music. And I have a background in music. I don't know if I have mentioned that, but it plays a large role in what I do is that if I focus on I missed the last note, I'm gonna miss this next note. I'm gonna ruin it. If I focus on the note coming up, I'm gonna miss this note right here, right now. So it's all about doing the absolute best you can in the moment. And if you mess up, learn a lesson, move on. Do not hold on to that pain and frustration because it's simply going to cause you shame and guilt, which has been proven time and time again. It puts your body in a state of wanting to die and jacks up your cortisol. It's not good. So knowing that, I can't hold on to it. All I can do is simply do my best the next time around and allow myself forgiveness and move forward.
I love what you said about the music. It makes so much more sense. It's like you're going to screw up on the next note if you're not focused and you're worrying that you missed the last note. I'm going to take that and use it in my daily life because our lives are still kind of, even though we're getting out of it, it's not exactly how we thought or our schedules. And some of us are still working from home or we're doing a combination of both. So it's a little bit hard. And same thing with students. Students probably are going back in the fall, but some are still going to be online. And it's finding that balance between online and the real world.
This is the difficult part for our generation is like say before us, it was essentially industrialized nation where it's you show up before the bell and you leave when the bell rings. And football games are at this time, and then eating times are this time. Everything's provided to them already. Now it's okay, everything's up to you. Now you have to control your own life completely. And people weren't really ready for that. We weren't taught how to do that. We weren't taught how to organize a lifestyle, how to organize a sleeping schedule, eating schedule, friendships, and staying consistent on the things that aren't just business, but also keep us happy and healthy and make us want to be a part of life. And that's I recognize that because I was during intern year doing mental health in the emergency department was COVID. That whole time I was in the emergency department talking to exclusively people's mental health that was so bad they had to come to the emergency department for it. So I learned this very, very quickly, and it's why I'm so passionate about it. And I don't play when it comes down to how serious, you know, having a purpose and organizing our life around it truly is to our health and well-being and success is truly because it leads to a lot of like very powerful, like wealth and happiness too.
Everyone's different, but do you have any general tips of how to create a better balance in life as we move forward through the pandemic and kind of out of it, of like how to make sure that we have enough like social time and maybe exercise time?
Absolutely. So the method I've come up with that works the most efficiently, I found, is taking the five things that stabilize a human: sleep, exercise, nutrition, social interactions, relationships, and then finally meditation, which is like flow or spirituality, religion, states of optimal experience. As long as we have those five things, we tend to do very, very well as people at minimum. So what I have is a complete the wheel method. So every day I will look at the wheel: sleep, social interaction, sleep, nutrition, exercise. And I'll say, where am I deficient in? You say if my exercise is off, now the wheel doesn't roll. If the exercise and my relationships are off, now it really doesn't roll. If I didn't sleep, I ate poor, I didn't work out, and I'm in a fight with my people I care about, and I didn't meditate or pray or anything, I'm garbage, like full on garbage. And sure enough, I have my clients and I have my patients track this. I had them pay attention to it. So whenever you're struggling, look at the wheel and where are you at, and then fill the gap in. And then it's hard that way because you're already in pain. That's why you're looking at the wheel to start with, like what's going wrong. But simply make the necessary adjustments and have faith that if you do all of those evidence based practices and proven methods, that you're going to get better. I promise you. It's just about if you put the effort in.
I just love how you make things so much easier to understand. Like, I love your wheel method because it is a great way to imagine it, because sometimes this stuff is hard, obviously, for myself and other people to grasp. And when you put images together, it just makes it so much easier. One more question before we go. How do we help guys open up more? Is there a way? Is there a solution to be more accepting, I guess, of what they're going through? Any tips or tricks for anybody around? Any guys?
Yeah, there is. So I would say first off, just educate yourself. Find some podcasts are literally everywhere about men's mental health. If you hop on Instagram or YouTube and just type in or Facebook, type in the hashtags, mental health awareness. You can do things like growth mindset or psychology, and just go watch a couple videos. Like what is trauma? What does it lead to? What's depression, anxiety? How do emotions work and how do you move those around? And it's really good to hear other people who do it well and then simply emulate and mimic those people. That's how we're really designed to work and operate on that frame. So I recommend doing a slow approach into it, unlike me, who just spilled my guts on social media to everybody in one gigantic post and just never stopped. Because then you freak some people out, if you go too far one way. Just be open and honest. And I think one thing that the young people need to hear the most is you think that you're going to get like this wave of like people thinking that you're a freak or something, or like mentally unstable. And it's just not true. Like what you said earlier about everybody experiences these symptoms is the absolute truth. Everybody can relate to depression and anxiety or some of these wild thoughts. And whenever you speak about them, other people want to talk about those too. And by you doing it, they're like, dude, they're all hands. Like they're clapping for you in the back. They'll comment, they'll say, good job, be strong. Here's what worked for me. And we'll share and grow as a people. And that's exactly what happened to me. Is I thought that people were going to like think I was a crazy, but really they were very supportive and very helpful.
Well, we have this one image of ourselves of what we think is going to happen. And we're like, it's like anything we do, or like, oh, someone's going to judge me on that. But I've realized now is like, as soon as you kind of pull that wall down and let people in, they don't judge you. They're doing the opposite, and they're there to support you.
That's what it's all about. Vulnerability leads to trust, and being open with your thoughts and emotions, that then allows other people to be open with their thoughts and emotions. And now we can have an honest conversation, and that's what builds society, is individuals communicating and growing together.
Love it. So if people want to continue the conversation with you and see all your cool Instagram stories, what's your Instagram handle and any other contact information you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is Dr. Benergy. So it's Dr. DOCTOR.BENERGY. So that's obviously Benjamin plus energy, but really it stands for Be the Energy, which means that right here, right now, there's a way to be that makes the situation for you and your people. So it's time to be humble and just do that. And the other thing is I do have a Facebook group where I share a lot of these concepts, and I do a lot more of my open-ended conversations and share a lot of my resources about, mental health and performance and development. And that one is called Health, Education, Life, and Performance Group on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Benjamin, for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation. If you have been listening to this podcast and you want to learn more about how you can help people cope with mental health struggles, all you have to do is enroll in the Addictions and Community Services Worker Program right here at CDI College. All you have to do is go to our website, cdicollege.ca. Look forward to talking with you next month. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pick Me Up Podcast Unscripted. Brought to you by CDI College, the training you need for the career you want. Make sure to continue the conversation by following us on our social media pages. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any episodes. And for more information about CDI College, check out our website, cdicollege.ca. Talk to you next time.